why did Vinyl get canceled? So let's talk about this thing right here, right now. So the thing about Vinyl was that it was a very good show. Unfortunately, it only lasted a season because it did get renewed, but then eventually, HBO kind of canceled it just in general. So let's talk about why did it most likely get canceled, in my personal opinion. Now, overall, Vinyl actually had a lot of good things going for it. It had all the right moves, all the right plays. It had Jagger, it had Scorsese, it had Terrence Winter coming right off of Boardwalk Empire, which was a very praised show. You even had the New York setting, had the rock and roll type of theme in the 1970s that actually seemed really cool to do. But then this is where things kind of took a turn for the worse. Now, overall, the very first episode of Vinyl was actually quite good, right? Richie and all that, whatnot. Scorsese directed it. Unfortunately, I feel like the first episode of Vinyl really was the testament as to what would be the failures of the show just in general. Now, at the very beginning of the first episode, you kind of had Richie and all this whatnot, but at the core essence of the thing, it was like what rock and roll was, what it was, what it meant to be kind of like, aggressive and, dirty and sweaty. It's rock and roll and bash you across the head. That's what rock and roll was, according to what these people were. Now, granted, some people probably say, well, I guess it was the rock and roll theme, the 1970s. People couldn't relate to it. I say bullshit. The problem it's just that they really didn't do a good job of kind of showcasing the music. At first, it did kind of seem like that, but then it kind of took a backseat to a lot of the storylines that nobody was most likely probably interested in. Now, at the first episode, you kind of had Richie, and you had Devin, and you had Lester. The Lester stuff was actually quite good, and it seemed like it was going well until they kind of took a turn for the worse. And they had the nasty bits of all that whatnot going on, and then it kind of just went into different types of swerves and like more character pieces and his addiction and whatnot. And then the second passenger in the seat pretty much wasn't music, so people expected a music show about the 1970s, and for the most part, it did. Yes, granted, it wasn't historically accurate. They had to take a couple of different paths because this is a fictional show, and that was actually quite cool. The problem was nobody wanted to see like a fake Don Draper in the 1970s. Nobody wanted to see him and his wife battle it out because of a divorce or the kids or whatever it may be. That's pretty much what they were kind of making him be. It was Don Draper in the 1970s. Nobody really wanted to see that, and it was copy and paste thing. Also, not to mention, the show was just kind of slow in general, and a lot of things didn't really progress. Some of the characters really weren't that great, and when it did come time to pretty much develop them, it was a little bit too late, and by the time that was over, Vinyl became just what Vinyl is, extinct, pretty much, or pretty much the basic thing. Now, overall, for me personally, I think why Vinyl kind of failed was just that, as I said, I think they had a lot of interesting storylines, but they rather tried to focus on some of the more cliche aspects of like a job-dedicated husband cheating or whatever it may be and drugged up to the point where you just kind of felt like you've seen this before. The cool aspects of Vinyl were the music stuff. Unfortunately, it took a backseat, as I did say, to a lot of things that were kind of like pointless. No offense to Devin and Olivia Wilde. Granted, I love her merkin and her tits in the show, but her storylines were just not really that great. And I think the show never really progressed until it was later on. And it was one of those shows that you could feel like you're watching and you could just be like, yeah, I have a feeling this is going to kind of fail. Now, granted, I don't think HBO should have pulled the plug just yet. If I'm correct, I don't think The Wire was ever like a big rating success. Now, granted, The Wire was not, very expensive, but that was the next thing that kind of caused Vinyl, to end. It was a very expensive show. Now, granted, Game of Thrones is very expensive also, but it does turn into bucks for ratings and critics and, awards or whatever it may be. Vinyl never really got that chance to kind of explore itself, but then it was also its own fault. You got to realize that audiences these days are not very patient. They don't want to see shit really that slow sometimes. Sometimes they want to see things kind of pick up. And unfortunately, that's kind of what happens with a lot of shows. They kind of bite the dust very quickly. There was a lot of things kind of left unresolved pretty much, like the Juno Temple stuff and the nasty bits, that three-way stuff. Even though I wasn't really looking forward to it that much, he had Andy Warhol, could have been Jimi Hendrix. It could have been a lot of cool musicians kind of coming in, but unfortunately, we never really got to see. And now Richie had the stuff with the police. A lot of things were left unresolved. But unfortunately, I think when it comes down to it, you have to wrap this whole shit up into a bow as to why Vinyl failed. It was mainly because, very expensive. The storylines just never really progressed much, and they kind of focused on the wrong stuff, and people wanted mainly the essence of what the music was. And unfortunately, even though Richie talks about loving the music, he didn't really, showcase the music that much, unfortunately. And I think that's kind of where Vinyl failed. Instead of focusing on the music, they focused more on the characters, and that's great, but you got to do the music first, I say, especially when it's a show like this. Unfortunately, I do feel like the show had its ups and downs, but I think it pulled itself together towards the end. but it did not get a chance because HBO renewed it, ironically enough, and then they canceled it because I'm guessing it was probably too expensive and just wasn't turning out profit. But I think they should have backed this shit. What do you think? Do you actually think this is why Vinyl failed? Did I knock it over the head? Did I actually fail miserably and slip on a banana peel? Let me know. Comment, subscribe, and like. Don't hit me with a guitar. I'm Chris Smith, and I'm signing out.
When I started in this business, rock and roll was real and pure.
Mr. Finestra, is there a problem with the document?
I started this company from nothing.
Right, and now we're selling it.
I'm talking about our dreams, man. You don't understand.
Okay, here's what I do understand, Richie. You're high.
Yeah, what? So what? Hey-oh! It's a privilege to do this job, to introduce the world to new music, to shape the culture,
Richie, we're gonna be bankrupt in a month.
go in a new direction, trying to bring us into the future.
Well, you're over there in the future. I'm here in the present trying to keep the lights on.
Hey, we're about to turn a corner.
That's exactly what the Nazis told my Uncle Isaac. Showers, right around the corner.
I want fresh artists today.
I have something. I think they're pretty good.
Where'd you find them?
I saw the singer on the subway and I liked his look.
That's what I'm talking about.
Do you have any idea how screwed we are?
I'm sure he's fine.
Yeah, of course he's fine. He's always fine.
Our future, everything. It's all riding on this company.
You got a guilty conscience, and this is what you come up with? That's it. That's all I got.
I promise, I'm gonna bring us back. Let's show people how rock and roll is supposed to make you feel.
Heaven knows they wanna